District to order for today's meeting, July the 28th at 4 p.m. Machine is open for roll call.
Verbal, yes.
Let the record reflect that we have several members absent today. All members are present except Councilman Konovich, Newberry, and Black at this time. And I'd like to ask you all to stand for the prayer to be led by Mr. LaFrance and the pledge by Dr. Gouy.
We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessing, especially for the parish natural resources. We pray for all of those who have lost their lives from COVID-19. We pray that the number of COVID-19 cases does not reach pandemic level again, and the world move forward to a healthy and brighter future. We pray that entering this hurricane season, everyone will get prepared and the season will be a peaceful one. We also pray that we will be spared from all harm and destruction. We pray for the people of Ukraine and that you provide a path to peace and to stop the senseless killing. We pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve the parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all, and for the wisdom to know right from wrong, and the courage to do that which is right. This I pray in Jesus' mighty name, and all God's children say, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to recognize that Councilman Black and Councilman Newberry have shown up. We also, at this time, I'd like to introduce our new in-house port attorney, Ms. Melissa Oubre, and I want to welcome her to the chamber today and look forward to working with you. And Ms. Oubre?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the board for giving me this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. And for the public's knowledge, Ms. Oubre comes aboard with a unanimous decision from the attorneys that vetted her applications prior to the interviews and during the interviews, as well as the council board support at the last meeting. So we have a lot of confidence and faith that you will do us a good job, and we look forward to it.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Hearing none?
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
At this time, we will move on with the agenda.
There are no matters under item 2, executive session. Item number 3, status report by the executive court director.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board. I am Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Blackmansport Harbor and Terminal District. Follows is my Executive Director's report for the reporting period of 15 to 27 July. During this time frame, we conducted a Teams meeting with members from WSP Engineering Company who are stakeholders in the container terminal project. They have clients who are very interested in the Plaquemines Liquid Terminal property, and the visit is being arranged with them in Houston next week. We met with a group from Odessa, Texas, called Odessa Energy, that previously arranged a tour of the port property. They are interested in pursuing our port as their import-export port. We conducted a community outreach meeting at the behest of Councilman LaFrance at Port Sulphur, YMCA. The feedback we received from the participants was positive and exciting. We will be conducting another community outreach meeting at the Bill Chase Auditorium on Monday, 2 August from 6 to 8 p.m. At this time, I will defer to Mr. LaFrance if you have anything to add.
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Mr. Chairman, subject to your questions or comments, this concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Sanders? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item. Mr. Bartholomew?
Yeah, I just wanted to see, find a way possible he can include to having a meeting on the East Bank because of the schedule of the ferry and because of being so close to a lot of homes on the East Bank, the construction site and noise and all kind of little things go on. And the people want to be aware of exactly of what's going to be there. And you can have it at the Percy Griffin Center in the event.
Got it.
That's all I have.
All right, Ms. Newberry? Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item.
Item 3A, financial report, budget to actual.
Good afternoon. All port commissioners have been provided a 2022 total budget report and detailed budget report for actual expenditures shown as of June 30th, 2022. This does bring the port to its second quarter, end of second quarter for 2022. This presentation will be uploaded to the port's website. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I do. Christy, can you hand her one out of the folder?
Please.
Thank you. So as I stated, this presentation will be uploaded to the port's website for the public, along with the supporting details. This will be a summary of the revenues and expenditures where we are, but I will include the line item details that are provided to all of the commissioners in their packages as well with this report. Okay, so this slide will give us a snapshot of our total budget for and where we stand as of June 30th, 2022. We have a total revenue budget of $28,966,570 as of June 30th. $12,321,056 of that revenue has been earned, which leaves us with about a 57% variance for the remaining of the year. Expenses, our total personnel expenses, total budget $5,531,795. As of June 30th, $2,034,612 has been expended, leaving us with about 63% of that budget remaining for the year. Total financial services, total budget of $9,190,085. As of June 30th, about $1,558,721, leaving us with about 83% of that budget remaining. We do have some subcategories and breakdowns of some of these expenditures in the following slides as well. Total operating services, total budget of $5,659,021. As of June 30th, $1,644,694, leaving us with a 71% budget for total operating services. Taking a look at the revenue by the subcategory, taking a look at the grant revenues, we have a total budget for grants of $6,047,279. That includes port security grants, along with dredging funds that we have received for the dredging projects we have on the books. As of today, June 30th, we have only earned about $152,602 of that. A lot of that revenue depends on when the projects are started up and expenditures are actually spent out before we can earn that revenue.
I have a question. So on the grant, is that what we're expecting by the end of the year is the difference? Since it's already in the budget for this year, the 6 million?
Yes, that is what we have been awarded. You will not, when it comes to the grants, you don't earn the revenue until the expenditures actually happen, until you start up the project and start incurring expenses, and then the revenue is earned simultaneously. But we have been awarded that amount of grants, but some of those grants may roll over to the following years if those projects do not start up within this year.
Thank you.
Tariff revenues, we have a total budget of $5,014,500. As of June 30th, we have earned $2,793,454, which puts us at about 44% remaining to according to our budget, which actually puts us ahead of the 50% curve as of the June 30th. So we are looking good on our tariff revenues as well. Ferry revenues, we had a budget of $500,000. As of June 30th, we had only earned $102,948,000, leaving about 79% of the budget remaining. Interest revenue, 3,620 budgeted, with 2,081 being collected, at about a 43% rate on remaining for the interest revenue. Rents and leases, we have a $17,325,171 budget. As of June 30th, we have earned $9,258,779 of that, with a 47% remaining variance. Miscellaneous revenues, we have a budget of $76,000. As of June 30th, we have earned $9,302, leaving an 88% remaining budget for that revenue category. The next slide is a visual or a graph of the numbers that I just went over. For those who would prefer a graph, I won't go through those numbers again. Our tariff revenues, comparing it to 2021 as of June 30th, we are showing about a 1% difference for 2022. I do believe that is mainly due to our kind of 30-day delay in billing. A lot of our reporting forms for June will get billed out and issued in July. So I think that 1% variance, that gap will close up once we catch up on what's being reported to us following departures.
You want to speak?
Did we get a tariff increase? I know we talked about it. I don't remember. Sandy? On tariffs, we talked about a tariff increase. Has that been,
We did a study with UNO to compare the Plaquemines port to the other ports within the market. We did complete that sometime after the beginning of the year. So we weren't finished analyzing it to have the rates in effect for 2022, but we do have plans on having those rates proposed and implemented for 2023.
thank you.
You're welcome. Next slide is the expenses by subcategory. We do have a couple of these. I will highlight those expenditures or those subcategories that are below the 50% mark, instead of going through line item, because we kind of went over it in the total budget. We do have our operating services. We had a budget for the year of $237,530. As of June 30th, we have expended $141,501 of that, leaving us with 40%, which is about 10% below our target of a 50% budget that we would like to see at June 30th. Again, the details regarding this total budget and total expenditures will be supplied in addition to this. If there are any questions regarding some of these items, I do want to say that I do give a financial report each month. So once this information is put out, you can email me regarding the questions prior to the next meeting. We can discuss those details at the following meeting. Our next category, rents and leases, we had a total budget of $142,660 as of June 30th. We have expended $108,826, which shows a 24% remaining budget. I had mentioned last month at the last financial report that a lot of that has to do with the prepaid rent and utilities regarding our building. Next category that is below the 50% mark is the other charges. We had a total budget in that subcategory of $21,900 as of June 30th. Actual expenditures for that subcategory is $231,838. That was also mentioned at last month's meeting that the rail usage fee is included in that subcategory and causes that large variance. I do have meetings scheduled with the staff following Labor Day weekend where we will discuss the 2022 budget and any needed amendments that we may see in the future, or based on our forecasting and based on the remaining fourth quarter for the year, third and fourth quarter. And we will also begin discussing our 2023 budget and its planning as well.
Shimbrel,
Yes.
back to the last, if you can go back real quick. Back to the variance of 24% with the rents and leases. Can you send out a detailed report to the board once our computer system gets up and running, see what our expenditures are and see if we need to do anything further to amend that?
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And this is a graph, again, of the expenditures by subcategory. I won't go over those details again. It kind of just recaps what the figures from the previous slide stated. And subject to any questions, that concludes my report.
Any other questions from the board? I have a couple of questions. Let me clarify one thing in my mind. So the other charges that to date, June the 30th, have been expended, there's $231,000. That is to the sustainability partners?
A majority of the 231 is. I can go through the details as far as what other items is included in that subcategory. In other charges, we have an official fees. There was an actual amount of $33,699 expended for that. Other charges, general, $125. Other charges, sponsorships, $10,410. Other charges, special promotions, $1,915, and other charges, usage right fees, $215,618.
So to date, for 2022, $215,000 for sustainability partners?
Yes.
Does that include last year's payments?
No, this is only 2022's budget.
Okay. The second question I have is, today we have a cooperative endeavor agreement on the table that requires us to appropriate in excess of approximately $6,500,000. What line item will you be addressing that with?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the ordinance you're speaking of. What's being introduced for?
Well, we had a
Courtship
meeting Monday
service.
that we have talked about. You want to refresh our memory?
You're talking B3 relocation
Yes.
and where that's included. Okay, we currently had a 5-year capital improvement budget for the B3 at the $6.5 million that we basically allocated those funds across the next 3 years at, I think, two point something. I don't have the 5-year capital improvement budget in front of me, but the project was divided by the 3 years. And I apologize, I wasn't there Monday to discuss that introduction.
Well, I think that this subject has to have some further discussion, because we've had this discussion about splitting it up over 3 years. And if the contract is going to be bid as one contract, or the contract documents split up over 3 years into 3 phases of the project that'll allow the budget to be split that way? Or are we going to build a dock and
But for the 2022 budget, during the budget hearings, that was brought up as far as the 6.5 million, because we had discussed the B3 and the cost of that prior to the 2022 budget hearings. And we spoke with the state legislative auditor's office, and as long as there is proper language in a clause stating in the bid documents and in the contract that this project will be subject to the funding each year, then we are clear to split it amongst the 3 years. So I think we should have some further discussions on it, and we can revisit the conversations and the documents and the responses that we had from the state legislative auditor's office when this issue regarding the 6.3 million first came up.
Yeah, I'm on a page to where if the contract is going to be bid in 3 phases, I can agree with that. But if it's going to be bid in 1 phase and the contract is split into, say, the dock and say this portion of the project, and there's 3 separate projects.
I don't think that's not what the law is stating that you have to do.
Well, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to put it on hold. We're going to let our new attorney have a crack at this. And I've had an extensive discussion with the legislative auditor as well.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been a subject that we have not agreed on for the last 1.5 years or 2 years, actually. And so we'll let that rest and be glad to dig into this later. Thank you.
Yes, but the project was presented in the 5-year capital improvement for 2022 in the 3 phases, and it was also adopted by the board in that manner.
However, well, I'll let it rest. You can have the last word. Next. Are you completed, Ms.?
Yes, if there's no other questions.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we have a comment from the audience. Mr. Valet?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is the same statement I've made probably over the last 2 or 3 years, is that we don't get the information in advance, nor do you, that we can look at these budgets and the references and the performance and determine and have any questions. I'm going to make the same suggestions that we had previously. These are not confidential information, it's public funds. It's nothing confidential, these are actual facts, and they are after the fact. Why can't we get all these reports put on the website at least 7 days prior to the meetings, so we all can raise questions, you can have the questions, and we can request them, and everybody can be prepared to this information. Again, it's all transparent, it should be transparent. I guess we talked about this a long time. I've said it, this is probably the 3rd or 4th time that I've requested the information be made public. There's nothing confidential there.
I agree. Anything,
Can we get it done?
comments?
Joel, can you publish this information 7 days before these council meetings so we all can see it?
This report will be posted. We have discussed that the report is given to the commission and then it's placed, as I stated earlier, it will be posted to the website. We give a financial report monthly. So in the event that there are any questions after you go through the details, and I think for time's sake, so we don't have a finance committee, we don't have committee meetings where normally that type of discussion would take place, and we do allocate time each month so that questions can be submitted and prepared for. I have never received any questions from the public regarding them
And I appreciate
to
your
come
comment.
and have the information prepared and presented.
But item 3A is the financial report, a review of the budget to actual. And the time to review it and discuss it is at this time, not a month from now, after the fact. And I realize Nothing should go out to the public that this committee or board has not seen yet. They should get it, and simultaneously, when they get it, that information is public. It should be publicized somewhere.
Right, let me say this. Since we received it today, and she's going to put it on the website today or tomorrow, that you get a copy of it and come to the next meeting with any questions that you may have, and we will discuss them.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that. I understand it's just going to be duplication of efforts for you all, that we go through it twice. But if they can't publicize it and
Well-
the people in the parish see where their money's going and what's there, it's just only fair.
I understand, but let's just approach it from this standpoint. She'll put it on the website tomorrow, and you get a copy of it, get the questions, come back to us at the next meeting with the questions, and we will address them. I understand duplication of effort, but it seems to be a habit, and we will continue to do that habit of duplication of effort. if we have to.
I'll do it as you suggest and see how we can work forward with it.
Thank you. Thank you. Does that complete your presentation, Ms. Riley? It does. We'll move to the next item.
Agenda item number 4, bids and advertisements. There are none. Agenda item 5, introductions of ordinances and resolutions. We have 2. Both are for Commissioner Roussel. The first one is a resolution authorizing and directing the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District Chairman, Benedict Roussel, to negotiate and enter into an employment contract with Melissa False-Oubre as in-house legal counsel for the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The second one is an ordinance authorizing Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to purchase land owned by Celeste Ancar and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And that is it.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Ordinances and resolutions on second reading and final passage. Item 6A1 is deferred. 6B. Is a resolution authorizing and directing the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District Chairman to enter into an employment contract with Maynard J. Sandy Sanders for services as Port Executive Director by signing the employment contract to enter into said contract for a term of 3 years, authorizing and directing the Port Chairman to sign the documents to enter into the contract by close of business on August 4th, 2022, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Gui.
I'll offer with changes. All those changes have been distributed to all of the members of the board, and I'll ask for a second. Second. Just for the public, the original resolution that was presented was for a one-year contract extending our port director's term here. Quite honestly, we did not have the votes to do that. So we did some discussions, and what I'm offering today with changes is a 3-month contract, which will end November 4th, 2022. My primary concern with changing directors at this time has to do with the actions that are taking place now in regards to the container port. There's a lot of moving parts, and the stakeholders and investors who are involved have publicly at this meeting expressed some concern about whether or not we should keep Sandy Sanders for any duration. My thoughts are that we have to do whatever is possible to keep that train going, that we get through these goals in as quick a time as we can, that we accomplish those tasks that are on the table. Land acquisition, contracts with a terminal operator, contracts with any other ancillary groups that would make for a better port operation. This will give us 3 months to do that. If we can't do it in 3 months, then shame on us. So what I'm asking is that we strongly consider, for the sake of this project, the only, well, Venture Global, but the only new project on the table that will increase revenues in this parish. And if everyone at this table and the president's office has struggled with lack of revenues, lack of personnel. And this is one of the projects on the horizon that give us some hope to bring revenues into the parish so that we can start providing services that people are accustomed to and deserve to have. So with that, I will, Mr. Chairman, I'll open the floor for any discussion and just request a closing statement before we vote. I yield.
So let me understand this. The amendment, as you first said that it was for 1 year. Well, actually, the resolution that we are amending, and I would ask the secretary to read the amendment for the record with the changes.
On line 4, the term of 3 years has been struck out, and it will now be 3 months with the,
The resolution that was introduced at the last meeting
Really?
was for 1 year.
right. Oh, that's what you want me to read?
Whatever we're amending today.
What we are amending today, okay. No problem. Okay, on line 1, it was originally 3, then it was changed to 1 year. So now we're changing the 1 year to 3 months. And the term will end on today's resolution on November 4th, 2022. And those are the changes.
Okay. And that's what you offered, Dr. Gui. And who seconded that? Who?
Mr. Arborough.
Councilman Arborough. Are there any comments from the board members? Let me just say a couple of words here, and I'm not going to belabor the point because I understand the votes are lined up to do this. So to make it as painless as possible, I know some people in the audience are making fun and laughing, but this is not a laughing matter. It's a serious matter. And Mr. Sanders and I have had this discussion before. And I will not be voting for any additional days on this contract. And it goes back to the way that the LA-23 contract and the sustainability contract has been managed by the port director. As you know, I have made many requests for transparency, for documents to be transparent as to where the money is being spent on the railroad project. As you know, recently, our partners, APH, have decided to cancel their exclusivity agreement because of the fact that they have not met, and by they I mean the administration, and LA-23 has not met the goals that they have established for the past at least 2 years. And so at the last meeting, it was stated at this table that some individuals said they were going to have this purchase made by Tuesday of last week. And that was the deliverable that some people stood on. And that has not happened. So what another 3 months will buy us? It'll buy you maybe a new government in January where you can perhaps sell your wares to them. But I'm approaching this contract extension as actually a transition contract to where we are going to be transitioning and searching for a new director. Now, if that's wrong, please tell me at the table now because that's the direction that I am proceeding. And if it's not that way, I'd like to know. Because it said that we need to get our house in order and our affairs in order. If this is a life raft of 3 months, then tell me. If it is a transition to a new director, then tell me that as well. And I would like to hear that from everybody at the table, because this can has been kicked down the road, and these goals and deliverables have been kicked down the road for years now. And when we have the major investors in this parish investing the money that they're investing, expressing their concerns to this board, as each one of you and everyone here knows their concerns, and we ignore it, then what does that tell the future investors? And what does that tell those investors who are looking to invest more funds in this parish? It gives them a second thought. And if they have to deal with the same situation that they've been dealing with, they may choose to do something differently. And so without getting into specifics, I would ask anybody that has a comment here to make it. And if not, then let's move on with the vote. Councilmember Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to start off by saying I think you're incorrect in your assumption that either, one, that the votes are there, two, that we knew about this. I just learned about this. You and I had a discussion yesterday. This was not brought up to me.
Let me apologize to you if you took that personal.
I did.
Okay, I apologize to you, Mr. Black.
All right.
Because in our conversation, I thought you told me you were good with 3 months
When?
when we were on the phone. But I apologize to you if you didn't say that.
Yeah, no, and I didn't know about 3 months.
Okay.
I thought it was actually going to be 6 months would be something that I thought a new council could make a decision on the path forward. Neither here nor there. This is the first time I've heard, a little while ago, about the 3 months. But anyway, Sandy, I mean, look, you've known my position, and I've put a lot of confidence and trust in you, and I've done a lot of due diligence over the past few weeks, be it here, DC, and some other places. The only advice I'll give you, and I'm going to support the 3 months because I have spoken to nearly everybody in the room about this. I didn't, and I don't need to. However, I said nearly everybody in the room. Well, I've spoken to you, Don. We have not spoken.
Look, let's keep it civil here. Let's
About 4 weeks ago.
let's not address
Anyway.
across the table.
All
Let's
right, anyway.
comments.
The only advice I'll give you, Sandy, is we need to get to a point where we manage expectations of this board. And I had to defend some of the things that were said from some folks, because a lot of the blame goes on this council. It goes on this board. And you don't have unilateral authority just to do some things. So if you can't do it, don't promise it. And the same goes with Chris, with Mr. Fetters. If you can't do it, don't promise it. And I think that's the rub that some people have, that promises have been made, and we have expectations. And when those expectations are not met, we have these issues. That's just my opinion. So in the next 3 months, I think that a lot of things need to happen. And I don't want to belabor it and get into this any further, but I just wanted to say that there needs to be some wholesale changes on the approach. And I don't need to hear any more, Chris, from your group. Just do it. Just get it done. Period. I mean, we're tired of hearing, 3-hour port meetings about the same thing. So I'm done.
Councilmember Thalamy.
Yes, I'm very much concerned, And issues that I have is that we need to have accountability in the port itself, a staff line. And we don't have anybody that's supporting under Sandy as a port assistant director. Now, this legislation, it seems as though would give us the time to put somebody to advertise, to consider, and to hiring somebody in November to do it, to fill in and take care of the port. But as it stands now, I'm kind of leery about just letting it be. And I think that's the problem we have all along, that it's just there. So we need to be aggressive. I think the chairman and the port director should be able to set up the environment of seeking a port director and an assistant port director. Put it out there. And we as a council should put it and support it and get the advertisement rolling. That's what I see this to be. Now, if it's not, then I can't support that.
Any further comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman LaFrance.
can you advertise for a position that's not open?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
So I'm taking this, Councilman Bartholomew, one second, let me give it to you.
Yeah, the fact is that it's a 4-month period. We know that. It ends. As a contract, it ends. So when that ends, somebody needs to step in. So it's not an ongoing contract. It specifically states that, unless you change it here today to something else. You know? That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I understand. Mr. Blink.
Certainly, I have concerns about the timing of all of this. I've seen key legislation be pushed through this council during the holidays. It doesn't get looked at as closely as it needs to. Really worried about the timing. Yield.
So it seems to me, and, from Mr. Bartholomew's comments, from my comments, and from several of the other board members, that this, and I'm not speaking for everyone, I'm speaking for the ones that have expressed their concerns to me, that what we will be doing in the next 3 months is searching for a new port director and an assistant director. So, having said that, we have a short fuse, and Mr. Sanders, I'm not sure which direction you're going to be heading as far as getting your affairs in order, or exactly what the board intends to do on another 5-4 vote or 6-3 vote, depending on the deliverables, if they're there or not there. So it's going to be a tough 3 months trying to advertise for a position, as Mr. Blink said, that's being filled, unless we come to a consensus. Is that where we headed? And, I mean, that's what I'm getting out of the conversation that I'm having with some of the board members. In fact, we had actually been in a position to start tomorrow morning with conference calls with our key stakeholder partners on the path forward. And I'm sure those key stakeholder partners are watching this meeting today. And I want to encourage you to stay involved with us to ride this out. Because the stakeholders that are on the payroll are sitting in the audience today trying to stay on the payroll. And I'm not saying that we're not going to keep some of those people on the payroll, because this project is much bigger than one individual. And for those individuals to sit and sell the idea that the project is going to crash and burn because of replacing one individual is very short-sighted. Because the project is bigger than that, if it's a real project. Now, if it's where some people are saying smoke and mirrors, and it's not a real project, then it'll go the way of the smoke and the mirrors, and it'll go up in the air and smoke. However, I sat here, and, I'm tired of saying it. This transparency issue of us getting on the hook to repay this sustainability partners money that is going out the door of LA 23 is just totally unacceptable to me. And because the director has not harnessed that, tried to express some concern, is not something that I would like to be a part of. And then I heard at the last meeting that this project is a private project and that we are getting courtesy updates. And I, like Mr. Black, don't need to hear any more courtesy updates. If you indeed are invested in this project, then go build it, if it's your project. You don't need this board here other than to give you a construction permit, which I'm sure we'll be glad to do. But for us to banter around and not really accept the fact that this is a private project owned by others, just like Venture Global is a private project owned by others, they don't give us an update because they're out there doing their business. They're out there investing $13 billion in the ground, which we are very appreciative of. And as I mentioned last meeting, it's the largest project funded and under construction in the world. And for us to sit here and have to banter about a project that doesn't even have the property purchased yet does a disservice to all of us. Makes us all look like we don't know what we're doing. And then we got the business community out there taking a position, one way or the other, whatever that would be. And it causes a lot of infighting. Where if it's truly a private project, I say go do it. We welcome you. Go do it. And I would like to call the question.
Mr. Chairman, is this on the amendment or as amended?
It was offered with changes, so it's.
As amended, all right.
Verbal, yes. One, two, three, four. Wow, it fails.
No, you got mine.
Oh, your verbal, yes, I'm sorry. And the resolution passes, so you have a contract for 3 months, Mr. Sanders. And as the chairman, I anticipate on moving forward with trying to find a replacement. Thank you all. Next item, please.
6C, a resolution authorize.
Chairman.
Were there people that were signed up for public comment?
There were?
Were there? That's what my question, was there anyone signed up for public comment?
He signed up.
No one signs up.
Okay, well, then I think you would need to take public comment and redo the vote.
Have a motion to reconsider the vote. Second by myself. Machine's open on reconsideration.
Verbal, yes.
Yes, sir.
And the motion will be reconsidered. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor for public discussion, and I'm going to hold everybody to 5 minutes at the most. 3 minutes, what are the rules?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, what our written rules are. Now, I would ask you not to take any longer than that. We already heard this show many times. We'll hear it again. It'll be a disservice to us all, but we'll do it. Any comments from the audience? Mr. Fauché.
I'm not scared. Rob Forshey, 116 New Street. Okay, so I guess let me start by this. The citizens of this parish, obviously, please be aware of what you have just witnessed in a vote, as well as if you are employed by an employer and you refuse to give the information that an employer asks you to give, and you just deny on top of deny and continue to do this for not 1 year, not 2 years, but I've been coming to these meetings for 3 years and I continue to hear the same thing. No transparency, no truthfulness to the board or the citizens of this parish. Then you have major owners backing out of deals because of the way that they are being treated by this port administration, obviously. Letters are written. And then we're going to go and give a 3-month extension to someone who has yet to fulfill his responsibility to this board or the citizens of this parish. It's insubordination at the least. And if you were working for a private industry, you'd be fired immediately. Okay? And that's what should be happening. This guy should go. And anybody on the administration that backs him should be replaced as well. I will also state and hope that this commission, both the chairman, the co-chair, and the individuals that are sitting there, because all of y'all are citizens of this parish, would put yourself in our shoes and look at what's been happening. And then you vote your conscience and look at what the citizens of this parish need. And I think that that would flip a few of y'all's votes on this board. It's unfortunate that it comes to this because it really didn't have to. All he had to do was make the decision to become transparent and to answer the questions that the board and the commission ask. And not be flipped with every person that has a question to him. And that is the major problem as far as I'm concerned as to why he needs to go. The port chairman, the port chairman and the assistant chairman can handle all of the things that need to be done with any customer and any firm that is wanting to come to this parish and build in our port. Our port is not a build-to-suit port. This is a build, you build it, and we will give you the land to do it, and you will pay a fee on that property.
Time's
I
up.
yield.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Hi, thanks to the board for giving me an opportunity to speak. My name is Brian Harold, and I'm Managing Director of APM Terminals in the Port of Mobile, Alabama, and I also oversee APM Terminals' interests along the Gulf of Mexico. I wanted to first say that I'm humbly, appreciating the fact that I don't have the insights into a lot of the things that you've been talking about in regards to the comings and goings between the port and LA 23 and their dealings, and I can appreciate the frustrations along with some of the things and some of the lack of progress on certain aspects of this project. What I can speak to is what it is that we do and what our expertise is. Right? We're APM Terminals, we're part of the APM Moeller Maersk Group, which is the largest shipping conglomerate in the world. What we do is we develop terminals, container terminals, and we operate them. We have been involved in this project now for the last 18 months. And while nothing is perfect and it's not quite, certain milestones haven't met quite the way we want them to be met, what I can say is we've watched this situation very closely. And APM Terminals has great concerns over the timelines associated to this project and being able to get it done. What I want to impress upon everyone here is that while this project, I agree with what the chairman said, that, you know, if this is a viable project, it should be able to stand up and it should be able to happen, and that is absolutely correct. I think in this situation, however, it's a competitive environment in Louisiana, right? So while I can tell you that APM Terminal strongly believes that this is a very viable project, but we also believe that the clock is ticking. And we have concerns over a change in leadership and what that might cause in terms of delays to this project. The way that we view it, that is the biggest asset to just developing this terminal. From my aspect, all I'm talking about is whether or not we want a container terminal, a gateway facility, Louisiana's main gateway facility, to be in Plaquemines Parish or not. And at least from our aspect of it, if we want that to happen, then these timelines have to be met. In our view, and I've answered a lot of questions over the past few months about is that timeline doable, which is to have this thing open in 2024. And the answer to that is absolutely yes. However, that is a very tight timeline, right? That's what the shippers are depending on for this to be open in 2024. One thing that I can tell you is a most recent development in our dealings, and we're working on an operating agreement. I think, as you know, we haven't finalized an operating agreement yet. That's being negotiated. I feel like we're making good progress there. I can't say that that'll be done tomorrow, but I feel like we're making good progress there. One thing that I can tell you, and a good development that's happened, while APM Terminals up to this point has viewed this project as simply being an operator of the terminal once it's built, is that we are now, I'd say, getting closer, and we feel good about our potential of providing equipment, significant equipment to this project, and the means of its ship-to-shore cranes. So again, while that agreement is not finalized, we are getting close to the point where APM Terminals might be able to commit to providing ship-to-shore cranes for this project. And the important thing about that is, again, that lead time on cranes right now, especially given the challenges within supply chain, makes this timeline difficult to meet. But what we have the capability to do is source those cranes from our existing network, meaning these are cranes that already exist, that are being utilized in another major port around the world. We can simply reposition them here, which we have verified that we have the capability to do, and we have that equipment readily available. So that equipment could be here in very short order, certainly by 2024, if not earlier. Now, of course, we don't expect that it would be needed to be here earlier. But when we talk about the timeline, I would just like to say that we have concerns over if a change does happen, then what happens after that and how much time is lost on this project. And every month lost, every week lost, really just makes this project a little bit less desirable when you look at the competition that's out there. Right? I think Mr. Fetters mentioned in the last meeting, and he quoted me from our recent stakeholder meeting as saying, if a new container terminal is not built south of the bridge in New Orleans, then Louisiana will be left out. I stand by that, particularly for large vessels that are larger than the ships that are coming to this port today, that will be coming to the Gulf. I can attest to that because I operate and run the terminal in the port of Mobile. Those ships are coming, they will be here, and this state needs to be ready for it. So I think we all share the idea, the view that we would like to see that facility be in Plaquemines Parish. And I just, again, wanted to impress upon everyone here the risk associated to losing any period of time to the competition. And then the last thing I'd say is while I don't have that insight into the comings and goings of most of the dealings that you guys have had with Mr. Sanders and Mr. Fetters, what I can say is that APM Terminals was first approached and sold on this project by Mr. Sanders. We really appreciate the amount of just excitement that he shows over the project. He definitely believes in it, and he's sold us on it. Since that time, we've spent a lot of time really diving into it. And from our expertise in doing this in 75 locations around the world, we do believe that this is a very viable project, but with a very tight timeline. So the motion that's in front of the board right now for 90 days, I hope that that goes through and that certain milestones, which are very critical, that should happen in the next 3 months, are accomplished. Because the risks associated, again, going back to the timeline associated to terminal operator getting an agreement done, getting permits in place, which is so critical. I don't have to tell you about that, especially when you're dealing with federal levies, as well as making sure that the BCOs that are prepared to commit cargo to this project do remain and stay in place and invest. Those are the critical items that hold this thing together. Without that, I do believe that there's a high risk that this project happens, it just happens someplace else. Thank you very much.
You have questions, please? Hold 1 second.
1 second.
Dr. Gouy?
I think that what you've heard today is based on a reality that we're facing. And in order to try to keep some continuity going is why we're asking the board to give Sandy the 3 months so that we won't skip a beat. And as you heard in the meantime, there will be efforts to look for a capable port director in the interim so that it will be a smooth transition. That's what I'm hearing today from the board members. I would not be in favor, though, of dropping our port director and then waiting to get another, go through that process. And that's why I've asked for the 3 months. So I'm right in tune with you. I know the timelines are what they are. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you what's going to happen. The drop dead date for any renewal or extension of Sandy's contract will be October 27th. That's a reality, because if this does pass, it goes till November 4th. And I don't think anyone's going to sit on their hands and wait. There's going to be activity, because this is the project that will bring us back economically in this parish. Venture Global is tremendous. It's going to make a tremendous impact. But we can't just stop there, because of all of the facts that we know in regards to this container port are real. And the people I've spoke with who have much more knowledge globally than I in regards to the legs that this project has is extremely encouraging. So we're not going to do anything to harm that. And I want you to be assured, as all the stakeholders here, that we all have to work to make sure that doesn't happen. And I really appreciate your comments. You've been very consistent throughout the last few months, and I appreciate it. I yield.
Councilmember Blink.
Yeah, sure. Dr. Gore, you've long been a champion of this port, and it seems that things have went through phases, right? We, at some point, the idea of selling, building a port to residents and businesses in Plaquemines Parish was a priority, and that time has long come and gone. And now what we're in need of is a bit of a policy wonk, a finisher, somebody who's going to come in and make what needs to happen tomorrow happen years ago. And I'm a bit concerned that in your commitment to your dream to bring the port of Plaquemines to some sort of reality, maybe you've glossed over that. And that sometimes people that start these things aren't the ones that take them through the finish line. And the time is long come and gone. We wouldn't be in this position today if the tasks were accomplished. And when I was the chair for 2 years, I tried to move the ball forward, tried to get check-ins. How are we doing with the rail? Have formalized document weekly to look at, completely blown off. And the attitudes that this commission can't even check in are just completely absurd. And at some point, I want to ask you, like, when is enough? When? And I know you got to know better. You're really smart. Why is it taking so long?
Mr. Blank,
You want the floor?
I had an answer.
You want the floor?
I'm sorry. If I had an answer to why things would take so long, I could write a book about that. That doesn't mean that policies are going to occur to make things happen. I'm one member of this board, and I've always been one member of this board. And I've won some and I've lost some. But to say that I've lost the vision is a very myopic view on your part, because this vision of mine personally is as strong as it's ever been. Like Mr. Tyndall said last time, things change. Things have to be amended. And I realize that. And I think that's what we've done along the way. And we're at another crossroads now, and I think that we've come to a solution that allows this thing to continue. I don't think it's dead at all. I think that from the comments that have been made by board members here, it's very much alive, very much alive. And with the comments you're making, it's very much alive. So we need to keep thinking positive. What do we have to do to change our policies to conform so that this vision will become a reality? And it will be a reality. It will be a reality. It's driven by the market. We are part of it because of being a policy-making board. But the market's driving this. The market has driven it for a while. The market moves too slow. And that's because the market's writing the checks, and they want to make sure they write a check that's a good investment. I yield.
Thank you. Any further comments? You want to speak again, Mr. Blake?
Yeah, speaking of writing checks, when you called yesterday in the evening, you did have concerns about other employees being hesitant to sign checks, right? There would only be one employee that would be allowed to sign checks on behalf of the port. Or is that particular employee worried that these might not be above board, or is there some other concern? And that they don't want to take the risk, and they would have let Mr. Sanders continue to do that?
Well, Mr. Blank, I'll tell you that I gave you a fact that is a real fact. I didn't have an answer to it. We were talking, and I made the statement to you that if Sandy were to lose or not get his contract extended, we would have to do something to get a second person to sign checks. We would only have one person to sign a check. Donald Durr's gone, Paul Matthews is gone, Christie's there, Sandy's there. That's it. Chambrell can't sign checks. She can't do it. I mean, it's a conflict. So if Sandy's gone, we would have to do something to fill that gap. And if it didn't come across that way, I apologize. But I'm done.
And, taking that into consideration, Dr. Yu, I have legislation for suspension of the rules today to assign those check assignments if need be. Had this failed, I would have been asking you to suspend the rules right now to authorize other people to sign a check. She has the legislation in the folder. But I'm going to keep it in the folder for now because I don't come here unprepared. Okay? So the legislation is drafted. If this would have passed, we would have somebody else signing checks. But having said that, just want to address that issue. Back to you, Brian. You and I have been in meetings with some of our partners, and I understand, what you're saying and about the time frame and the lead time that we have. But we really don't know if we really have that lead time because we don't know if we do an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement. So those are the factors that we don't know. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's a little bit outside my expertise, to be honest with you, sir. I think that in our assessments and what we've tried to do is I'd say within our ability to determine if things are moving forward in the proper way. When it comes to the various permits and whatnot, we've spent a significant amount of time with the various agencies up in Baton Rouge to show them the progress that's made to this point and the actions that are being taken to meet those needs. And the feedback that we've gotten has been actually exemplary. So while I can't speak to everything in regards to that timeline, I would say that the feedback that I've gotten based on the documentation that I've discussed with folks up north, they have been extremely impressed with the permitting work to this point. And I would say that within our assessment and the various items that we look at, I would say that the permitting process is the furthest along of all.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever been to the Corps of Engineers office talking about permits and not be impressed? Did that ever speed up the timeline when you deal with the Corps of Engineers? I mean, every time I go there, they're always impressed, no matter what you say. They're impressed because that's their nature, and they're excited. But it doesn't speed up the timeline. Because you get a bureaucrat in the back room that wants you to dot this I instead of cross this T, it holds it up.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I just wanted to throw that out there to you because you have raised that in the meetings that we've had. And without going into the minutia of our meetings that we've had, you heard the same thing that I heard from our stakeholders.
Yeah.
And you're very polite today with your words. And I'm going to be very polite as well. But you know what the problem is, what the stakeholders said that have left the table, the others that are invested. And all along, when we have talked to you, this is the first time I hear that you are willing to put up some money.
This is, to be fair, so this is just a recent development.
It may be a recent development. I was told you were going to call me yesterday. I didn't get the call, and I'm offended for that. But this is the first time I hear that you're willing to put up some money, whether it's a crane, 2 cranes, or whatever. We still need $400 million. We still need somebody to come to the table to buy the property. And, I'm opening up something that I don't really want to do because, this is the same story we have heard for years. Closing, 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 no closing, no closing, no closing. You, and without putting you on the spot, you know that. You've been in the meetings where your timelines and the information given to you is not accurate. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, timelines that have been set, there are certain timelines that haven't been met. That I can't dispute that.
Right. Anyway, any further comments from the audience so we can move forward? Mr. Valet, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Members, it's really a tough situation you all are in. Unenviable one to be there. I've been there many, many times in the businesses that I've run. Sometimes you got to do some things you don't want to do, but you have to do them. It's like when I was a banker. The 2 most devastating things in a business is death and divorce. Except that that's final. Divorce doesn't end. You guys are facing a situation where all you're talking about is making a change in your management. Not your policies, not your goals, not the opportunities, but allowing a new opportunity to listen to what you all want to do. And I haven't heard anybody changing what you want to do and that you want a great port for Plaquemine Parish, and it can be. I've traveled that river, I've been overseas, I've looked at it. Sandy's tried to do it. They just don't understand it. You all are the board, and you run it. And there's been an argument from the beginning as to who's in charge, even when they sued you all with their lawyers, et cetera. We don't really need to rehash, though, why we're at the stage we're at today, but you're going to make a change. It's inevitable. The thing I haven't heard, you're talking about giving Sandy 90 days. To do what? The real question is he going to stay? Does he want to stay? How can this be an orderly transition? I would ask for his help to make an orderly transition until you find a new director on this thing. You do need to implement several signatures. This is nothing new. We do this in business all the time. You got a lawyer, and you got Mr. Christie over there. You need to appoint two board members to be alternates. You have 2 signatures out of 4, 1 of each in combination. It's simple enough to do it. But I haven't heard you tell Mobile that you don't want him here. Christ, I can tell you, every one of you all would get up and meet with him. It's a good deal. They just need to get up and finish what they're doing and stop competing with the other ports or where they want and what the best deal is. If you want to come here, we want them. We want them now. I'm not going to get into Chris Fettis' contract. I think your lawyer needs to get into it and advise you all what you want to do with it and how we're going to do this, because there's substantial problems with the people in this parish are going to face with the railroad, ingress and egress, etc. We don't have the flow to get the rail cars and all this out the parish. You need infrastructure. And unless we get some help from the state, we get our legislatures to do something, and the governor to help you, it's not going to happen. We need to move forward in those regards. We get ready to change politics. Unfortunately, I think some people are waiting, well, we can wait till this, we'll change the council, and then we'll re-vote and we'll do some different thing. I've advised several of the members that are wanting to run off for office, they need to find and really look at what you all have been doing for 3 years. Look at every one of your meetings. Attend them. Get tuned in to what this parish has wanted to do with this port and what the obstacles have been to it and how we can overcome those obstacles. Being a councilman is not a fun thing. Y'all get beat up regularly. You get called for trivial things. Where's my grass? I mean, how many times have we all heard that? I don't want this in my neighborhood. In all fairness, we all may disagree upon different things, but you all are good citizens to be here. And your public service that you've done it is welcome. I hope that before all you all get off the council, we thank you all for your services. But right now, you got to make a tough decision. You just got to change people that work for you. That's all it is. You're not changing your policies or anything. And Sandy, I know your style is one way, their style is another way, and y'all been butting heads for a long time. I wish you luck wherever you go, okay? But right now, we need to find a new port director and a new assistant port director. We need a business continuity plan. Your first move you made was hire a good, capable lawyer. Now she's got to do her homework and work with the staff. She's got a tough job ahead of her. And working with you all is a tough job, too. I warn her. Thank you. That's all I got to say.
Any further comments? None? Call the question.
Verbal, yes.
And the resolution is passed again, 4-3. 2 abstentions. 5-3, I'm sorry. I can only count 4 green ones. Next item, please.
6C, a resolution authorizing Menard Sandy Sanders as Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with Port Ship Services, Inc. and Bear Associates, Inc. for the Lot B3 relocation project and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Roussel.
At this time, I'd offer next for a second. Second by Ms. Newberry. I see Mr. Rathburn in the audience. Mr. Rathburn, are you going to address this, or
Mr. Suffern.
Suffern's in the audience?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Suffern, would you like to come up?
Before I get started, the chairman and I looked at this inside and out, and it is very complicated, and the chairman asked if we could have Mr. Suffern come today to talk about this, the CEA.
Thank you, Mr. Suffern. Proceed.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is Ed Suffren. I'm with the Dwyer and Cambry Law Firm. My address is 3000 West Esplanade Avenue, Suite 200 in Metairie. I thought it would be appropriate for the entire board to have an overview of the facts and what we have attempted to accomplish, and I think we have accomplished through this agreement. It is a cooperative endeavor agreement between the port and 2 other entities. It's Bear Associates and Port Ship Services. The purpose of this CEA is to allow the port to acquire B3. That's been the target property that the port wanted to acquire. It's owned by Bear, and it's ultimately needed by the port for its anticipated transaction with Venture Global. The complication that we had for the transaction is that Lot B3 was actually owned by Bear but PSS had separate ownership of the improvements. So the initial transaction that we've been able to structure is an exchange of the ground between the port and Bear. In that transaction, the port will acquire B3 and Bear will acquire 2A. Lot 2A is a property already owned by the port, and so it's susceptible to this exchange. Simultaneously, we're going to sign 2 leases. The port will lease B3 back to Bear, and that will enable PSS to continue its maritime operations, and Bear will lease 2A back to the port. The purpose of that lease is to enable the port to construct the replacement improvements. That's the overall deal. Bear and PSS were satisfied with their location. They're doing this to accommodate the port and the port's overall expansion plans. The second transaction, and this will be after the port has constructed the replacement improvements, is going to be another exchange. The port will transfer the 2A improvements, which it will construct, and PSS will transfer the maritime improvements on Lot B3 to the port. The 2 leases will terminate when construction is completed and the replacement improvements are accepted by PSS. Finally, the transaction will then have PSS move right down the river to the new site. That's really it in a nutshell. I'm available for questions. I know it's very complicated and it's taken us a very long time to negotiate this deal, but I think we pushed PSS and Bear as far as we can, and I recommend your approval.
Any comments or questions from the board? Councilmember LaFrance.
Yeah, what is the projected cost of this project?
It's was mentioned earlier in the meeting, approximately $6,500,000. We have asked for an update, though, from Infinity, and they are the project engineers.
Timeline?
The construction period would be 14 months, and that's information I've had from the engineer. We've agreed to use our reasonable best efforts to close on the real estate exchange within 60 days. There are 2 conditions precedent in the CEA, which are designed to protect the port, and that is the CEA would not be effective until this body approves the CEA, and then secondarily, this board approved an appropriation sufficient to construct the improvements.
Councilmember Blink.
Mr. Suffren, in your opinion, in the future, when a project like this is undertaken with considerable legal fees and a cost of $6.5 million to effectively relocate and replace what is an elevated shed and a ramp up the levee, do you think it's better to expropriate?
I think, and this might be better discussed in an executive session, but I think there were legal impediments to an expropriation.
I see. Thank you.
Yes, well, I don't know what the legal impediments were, but after looking at the total cost, it would have been worth the fight. Because, we started off with this project and, going back a long time, but I'm glad it's finally coming to fruition. It is a very expensive project, and I think the board needs to know that at the end of the day, we will own Port Ship Services B3. Port Ship Services will own the property that they are moving to. There will be no lease between us after that. They will actually own the property, and we will own our property.
That is correct.
And it'll allow Venture Global, who has been biting at the bit for years to get this cleared, to move forward with whatever they want to do.
That is correct. It would be available for, as I understand it, an option to be exercised, and B3 would be part of that option property.
Any further questions or comments? And the total cost of this project, when we add it up, it's going to be close to $10 million, in my opinion.
I really can't speak to that, but you could be correct.
I see you shaking your head, Mr. Rathburn. You got an idea? Sure, come up.
Just for the record, Mr. Rathburn has recently retired from.
Oh, I'm sorry to take you out of retirement. Go sit down.
But he has, we've arranged for an of-council relationship, so he still has a relationship with our firm.
Thank you, Mr. Roussel. Ken Rathburn, 1848 Fig Street, Metairie, Louisiana. In direct response to your observation, it's probably going to be more than the 6.5. I don't know that it's going to be the 10. I don't know. But I did want to address that, yes, you're probably correct. It will be more than that. What I would say by way of whatever that is, if it is 10 million, we potentially have an additional 8 million a year coming from Venture Global by doing this transaction. And that's really, I know that most of the council is keeping their eye on that particular ball because that would be for 40 years, 8 million additional in revenue. So it seems like, I don't want to belittle 10 or 8 or 7, but it seems like a good transaction for the port.
I don't disagree with you. We've been looking for the 8 million for a long time. We just haven't got it yet.
And if I may address the legal impediment, if you don't mind, Mr. Roussel?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There is a legal impediment. There's an actual prohibition because the port's authority in its statutes, there's one exception to what it can expropriate. And it cannot expropriate property that is being used for, quote, industrial purposes, close quote. And that's a pretty broad statement. I'm not saying we couldn't overcome it, but they are an operating business on the river, and that would be their argument, and that's why we've avoided the expropriation issue. B1 was another matter, if you recall, Mr. Roussel, that we did expropriate, and they tried to use that. Thankfully, they weren't in an operating business at that time. If everybody remembers, it was a derelict situation. They were just running a few people across the river there. They weren't doing a business. But that would be a real true issue for the port to attempt to expropriate property that is potentially being used for, again, I use the term, quote, industrial purposes, whatever that term may mean.
Well, thank you for that explanation. Any further comments? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Suffren, for your comments.
Thank
If there are no further questions, we'll move on and call a question. Machine is open.
Verbal, yes.
You gotta talk.
Let the record reflect that the vote is 7-1. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 7. 7-1. 1 absent. Next item.
Item 7, new business. There's no new business under this matter. Item 8, approval of the minutes from the July 28th, 2022 meeting.
So often.
Second. Offered and seconded. Offered by Mr. LaFront, second by Mr. Arbor. Any comments or discussion on the adoption of the July 14, 2022 minutes? Hearing none. Machine is open.
Verbal, yes.
And the minutes are adopted 8-0. There's a motion to adjourn. Second by Mr. Newberry. Machine is open on adjournment.
Verbal, yes.
Councilmember Blank? Thank you.
And the meeting is adjourned at 5:30.